Hello and welcome to the Business Debate. I'm Nadira Tudor and today we're talking about cybersecurity. Every day, huge volumes of data moves across our increasingly connected world. Whilst this brings enormous commercial benefits, it also poses considerable security challenges. To discuss these, we're joined in the studio by Gavin Reid, Vice President of Threat Research at Lancope. Gavin, welcome to the Business Debate.
Thanks for having me.
Cybersecurity, very complex issue here. Can you quickly describe it and explain what state we're at the moment in terms of cybersecurity?
So you could think of cybersecurity as the way that organizations protect their data, their ability to do business on the internet. And honestly, we're not in a super great state right now. There's been a number of hacks that have played out across the media, and we tend to have taken this approach of we've blamed the hackers for doing it, we've blamed the users for being silly users, we've blamed legislation, we've blamed the police for not doing enough arrest, but really we need to start thinking insularly about this. This is an organizational issue. Organizations have not secured themselves effectively enough to avoid being hacked, and it's brought us into this sort of state of war where we have on the one side nation states and criminals, and on the other side organizations and people kind of fighting it out.
I mean, you're right, it is a blame game, isn't it, at the moment? So what needs to happen? Because hackers are very clever people, and there seems to be this cycle that goes on. So, you know, the minute you found a solution, there's already someone who's got a counter solution.
Right, and the first thing is to not buy into that circle. And secondly, what you need to do is basically just figure out what's important to your organization and make sure you secure that. Make access to what's important, what the crown jewels to your organization, make that access hard, not easy, and log every single one of those accesses. If you think of some of the recent hacks for the Internal Revenue Service, that was the tax data. For the Office of Personnel Management, that data was our security clearance records. Those sorts of things should be very, very well protected, and unfortunately they weren't.
Most individuals and most organisations don't have the skills to be able to solve these problems. So what can your company offer?
So our company has always been about arming the security professionals with the exact technologies they need to be able to understand exactly what's happening at their site. So we can look at every single connection that happens through your network, every connection in and out, every connection east to west, every connection to an application, and be able to very quickly query that and arm your incident responders with the ability to understand exactly what's going on.
What are the special techniques or technologies that you have that organizations can't deal with at the moment?
Yeah, so if you have that sort of baseline of understanding exactly what's going on in your network, you can overlay things like security forensics, things like security analytics, things like threat intelligence. That's really sort of at the forefront of what's going on today in security.
So you've used a whole load of terminology that not everyone's going to understand. Forensics, I've got a little idea about. Analytics and threat intelligence. Can you explain what they are?
Yeah, absolutely. So you could think of security analytics as the ability to pattern data to find attack data that you can sort of easily pattern. And that's really great. It's got to be a huge part of anyone's defense in depth strategy. However, it has its limits, and I think we've maybe put a little bit too much into that in our industry, and what we found is that that's really good at finding sort of automated attacks, and it fails miserably at finding some of these more severe human-led attacks. That's where something like threat intelligence comes in, and you could think of threat intelligence really as being that clue that you would start an investigation from. And so hackers, like everyone else, are lazy, and if they can get away with infrastructure or technique reuse, they will. And so smart organizations have started using that against the hackers to sort of find out what they're doing. And even smarter organizations are now basing their security controls and architecture off of real, not imagined attacks. That's a great way to prioritize resources.
So if you've got any advice to give to these organizations about how to combat these threats, what would you say?
So the first thing is you can't protect what you don't know about. So I'd highly recommend, regardless of where you are on your operational security maturity model, that you audit your network to find out exactly what's on there. pay specific attention to third-party dependencies, because that's where a number of these huge major hacks have come through, not the main company, but through other companies that you depend on. And when I say audit and find out, I mean actually query to make sure that you know exactly all the components that make up your IT infrastructure. Once you have that, then you can apply incident detection, incident response capabilities. That's going to be a mix of people, process, and technology. And once you do that, I highly recommend that you test those three things on a regular basis. If you challenge your assumptions, I guarantee it's going to be worthwhile.
So it's really about really understanding the IT system of your organization and getting the right people in to help you solve and combat those problems.
Absolutely. And once you've done that, then you're going to be a step above all the other organizations that you're doing business with, because I tell you, most people are not there yet.
Gavin, thank you very much for joining us here in the studio.
Thanks for having me.